we stand with the stories of our fathers and the dreams of the land. We've been working hard for truth. It's a battle we embrace in small towns and in cities. We'll defend our sacred space. With every strum of strings, we unite, will be found. Together in the fight, hear that heartbeat sound. Live streaming with the people, we light up the dark. Patriot voices rising, freedom's fiery spark. Against the tides of silence, where the truth is often lost, we won't bow to the giants. We'll rise despite the cost, with independent whispers that grow louder every day. We're reclaiming our stories, won't let them fade away. Speak for the voiceless, with the strength of the crowd. Every heart is beating, we say it clear and loud. Live streaming with the people, we light up the dark. Patriot voices rising, freedom's fiery spark. We ain't bought, we ain't sold, we just tell what's true. With the spirit of the people, we'll see this battle through. Live streaming with the people, we light up the dark. Patriot voices rising, freedom's fiery spark.
All right, well, that was exciting. Let's see what we got here. Testing, mic on. All right. What's up, fellow patriots? Welcome to the one and only Patriot Media Watch, where the truth is raw and the voices are real. The people are live. That's right, you're not watching some scripted corporate news channel. You're here with us, independent voices of the people. Now, let me introduce myself. My name is Jesus, and I am your tech guy for the time being. I'll be running the live stream until our aspiring journalists take over the wheel. So consider this a test flight before we go full throttle. We're dialing in our systems, fine-tuning our live stream setup, and making sure that when our team jumps in, they're good to go. But while we're getting things set up, we've got a real mission tonight. Diving headfirst into the media battlefield. Left wing, right wing, two sides, two narratives. But what's the real story? We're cutting through the spin, breaking down what both sides are saying, and most importantly, bringing your voices into the mix. This isn't about politicians and pundits. It's about you, the people. So hit that chat, sound off, and let's see what the American really has to think. And hey, before I forget, we are 100% self-funded. That means no corporate overlords, no mainstream censorship, and no special interests calling the shots. We've built this entire thing from the ground up. Our own dedicated servers, independent platforms, 24/7 website, live chat, and of course, this live stream. That's just getting started. And guess what? You're here at the beginning. So buckle up, Patriots. We are just getting started. This is the Patriot Media Watch, the live stream for the people, by the people. All right, and today we have a little bit more content on the left side. So we're going to review some of what CNN has to say first real quick, and then we're going to roll into some of the comments and see what the right wing has to say and try to decipher exactly what's going on with this leaked text messages. I have not reviewed much of this at all. So about 100% of these videos we're going to play, or any content we're going to play right now, I have not reviewed. So we're going to go over together for the first time. Let's roll.
Senator, I can attest to the fact that there were no classified or intelligence equities that were included in that chat group at any time.
So,
and I
so
defer,
the attack sequencing and timing and weapons and targets you don't consider should have been classified?
I defer to the
classified?
Secretary of Defense, the National Security Council on that question.
With respect to the assertions and the allegations that there was strike packages or targeting information or things that relate to DOD, as I pointed out, The Secretary of Defense is the original classification authority for determining whether something's classified or not. And as I've understood from media reports, the Secretary of Defense has said the information was not classified.
Did this conversation at some point include information on weapons packages, targets, or timing?
Not that I'm aware of.
Director Gabbard, same question.
Same answer, and defer to the Department of Defense on that question.
So I understand that DoD policy prohibits discussion of even what is called controlled unclassified information, or CUI, on unsecured devices. Are both of you aware of that DoD policy?
Not familiar with the DoD policy, but I would say that the Secretary of Defense is the original classification authority for DoD in deciding what would be classified information.
The deliberation between principals in our national security apparatus about whether or not to strike another country, would you consider that to be classified information?
Pre-decisional strike deliberation should be conducted through classified channels.
So the question has to be posed to Secretary Hegseth whether he declassified the information and at what point he did declassify it. Do you agree?
Yes, I defer questions to the Secretary of Defense.
But as you've indicated previously, perhaps the Secretary of Defense was discussing classified information, and only he can be held accountable in terms of whether it was classified or declassified at the point when he spoke. Is that accurate?
Well, I didn't say it that way. I said the Secretary of Defense is the original classification authority, and my understanding is that his comments are that any information that he shared was not classified.
But you have no way to verify that.
I don't.
Sabrina, the president, though, is saying that everyone else was using Signal. We're all doing it. Why don't you, in some respects? Is that standard in the federal government for data like this?
It is not. And when I was at the White House, when I was at the Pentagon, I didn't have Signal on my work phone. And so Signal is not a app that should be used by government officials. On our work phones, what we were doing, I mean, you have classified systems and you have unclassified systems. The unclassified systems, you know, phones, emails, those are separate from classified systems. And what is so damaging and harmful in this reporting is that Secretary Hegseth took classified information and moved it into a non-secure format.
Okay. Let's start there because I find that very interesting, because that is something I didn't realize that the left was going to say. Who is this? So we got this anchor. She's stating that it should not have been. If he had that intel, he shouldn't have moved it to a public forum, which it seems that he did. So did he do that? That's the question. Now let's go over some of these comments. These comments here are being made under the left-wing media content. So we'll start from James Bigger at the top. MAGA, pre-election. There's no accountability anymore. MAGA, post-election. We're not responsible for anything we do. Okay. Next comment. Tulsi Gabbard can neither confirm or deny that she is Tulsi Gabbard. Okay. All of them, next comment, all of them would be screaming if this happened under Biden. Yeah, well, that seems like it doesn't matter who it's under. This has to do with military, not necessarily anybody in the upper chain of command, although they did choose these people to be in command. So let's continue. I'm interested to see what she says now.
And even though they're denying that there was classified information in these text threads, anytime there's a military operation, before an operation, if it is true that Secretary Hegseth put the locations, the timing, and the targets in that thread, that is classified. That is an operation. And so what he did was put those fighter pilots at risk. And that does warrant an investigation.
Using Signal to discuss operations as sensitive as the strikes against the Houthis on a government or a personal phone?
First, all I would say is the strikes against the Houthis that night were devastatingly effective. And I'm incredibly proud of the courage and skill of the troops. And they are ongoing and continue to be devastatingly effective. The last place I would want to be right now is a Houthi in Yemen who wants to disrupt freedom of navigation. So the skill and courage of our troops is on full display. It's a complete opposite approach from the fecklessness of the Biden administration. President Trump said peace through strength will be brought back. Freedom of navigation will return, and that's exactly what we're doing. As I also stated yesterday, nobody's texting war plans, and that's all I have to say about that.
So those same troops that you are proud of, do you regret putting information like the ones you did in the Signal chat that could endanger those same American service members?
Nobody's texting more plans. I know exactly what I'm doing, exactly what we're directing, and I'm really proud of what we accomplished, the successful missions that night and going forward.
Zolan, because this is an important point. He is talking about...
Okay, so he's stating that there is no war plans being texted. Now, that's something he's been stating since yesterday. I'm not sure if that may be the actual video from yesterday that he was taking. So I'm not sure how. Let's see what he's saying.
But then he was very particular when
he is saying, sensitive point. You're right. We have not heard a specific answer and a detailed answer from the Secretary of Defense of why were you talking about this just in general on Signal? You know,
Defense has said the information was not classified.
Well, why wouldn't he be talking about it on? What is he not allowed to talk on applications? That's how everything is ran. Everything's ran. Application is essentially the software. So why is he? It's not an argument. Why is he talking on applications? It doesn't make any sense. What's he supposed to talk on? I mean,
for a war, right? So he might be using his own discretion there, but at this point, you're right. We have not heard a specific answer and a detailed answer from the Secretary of Defense of why were you talking about this just in general on Signal? You know, obviously, what checks were in place to ensure who else was in this channel? Why not talk about this in the space the government creates for these sensitive conversations as well? I don't think that answer will have this story go away.
Is this a kind of...
Okay, very interesting. So it does seem that was just a security issue statement. Why? Instead, so I think that this has helped shed light on security issues, if there is any, or if this was an infiltration by an individual or group that should not have been involved in what was supposed to be an already screened, confidential group communication platform. So let's see what. Okay, let's go here.
The Inspector Generals, who are also the check on the agencies as well.
According to open source reporting at 11:44 on the morning of March 15th, Secretary Hegseth put into this group text a detailed operation plan, including targets, the weapons we were going to be using, attack sequences, and timing. And yet you've testified that nothing in that chain was classified. Wouldn't that be classified? What if that had been made public that morning before the attack took place?
Senator, I can attest to the fact that there were no classified or intelligence equities that were included in that chat group.
My source tonight, you just heard from there, an independent senator from Maine, Senator Angus King, and thank you so much for being here. You seemed quite skeptical of the argument about this discussion not being classified, what they were talking about. If imminent military strikes aren't classified, Senator, what is?
Well, that was exactly the question I asked. I mean, you heard the question. According to Jeffrey Goldberg, and he quite responsibly didn't report the details, but he said that Hegseth's text talked about the timing, the weapons, the targets, the sequencing. And as you say, if that isn't classified, I don't know what is. And I don't understand the witnesses today saying that it wasn't classified. And of course, I followed up by saying, well, if it wasn't classified, then give us the whole text chain, because if it isn't classified, let's see it here at the committee. And of course, there were no takers on that offer. And Caitlin, you know, people talking about this being a mistake, that seems to be the word of the day to defense. Well, it was a mistake. Well, you and I have probably, you know, texted to the wrong person by mistake, or perhaps joined a group that it wasn't the right one that we thought. But you're not the Director of National Intelligence, and I'm not the Secretary of Defense. These are the top national security officials in the country, and they were on a text chain that the Pentagon themselves, ironically, had said don't use for this kind of purpose. And they were discussing national security affairs. And it doesn't pass the straight face test that somehow none of this was classified. We're going to find that out. And we'll find out, I believe, reasonably shortly, what was in that text chain, because the administration can't now say, well, we can't tell you because it's state secrets or it's classified, because their Director of National Intelligence said about 10 times that it isn't classified. It was a very frustrating hearing.
Okay.
Senator,
Okay, so there you go. Saying it's classified. It wasn't classified, isn't classified. Okay, so that's a big problem. Let's make a comment here for the people to join in. If the signal chat didn't contain classified info, why did a defense official say otherwise? Who decides what's classified? Especially in this scenario, who decides what's classified? And will that person come forward and say, listen, I decide when it's classified. I can unclassify, I can classify, I could do whatever I want to, for whatever reasons I want to, because I'm the one in command of the labeling of such information. So that's very interesting. Let's try to see if we can move on to what the right has to say about this.
Breaking news now. We're going to head to the White House, where Peter Doocy is standing by as we have this Fox News alert for you. The Atlantic has now just published brand new messages from the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and others from that Signal chat group that accidentally included a journalist. Peter Doocy is live at the White House for us. The acknowledgement comes from the reporter that Hegseth, Peter, said that nobody was texting war plans in response to the release of these messages by the journalists. You also had members of the security team in that hearing yesterday saying no classified information was shared in that group, which led the journalist to then publish this piece just moments ago saying we faced a dilemma then, because he said that war plans were indeed exchanged on this text. What are you hearing, and what are we learning now?
Well, we have some more of the material that was being discussed on this chat. Pete Hegseth says no war plans, and let's show you what we have, and you can decide if this looks like a war plan. He texted the group at one point. At 2:10, more F-18s launch, second strike package. Then at 2:15, strike drones on target, all caps. This is when the first bombs will definitely drop, pending earlier trigger-based targets. It goes on to explain F-18 strikes, and then he says more to follow. He says they were currently clean on OPSEC. We know that the Pentagon has more detailed imaging and coordinates than that. And there is no imaging or satellite photos or coordinates or targets listed here specifically. And so it would seem that if you're going to fly F-18s and drones to take out Houthi guys, wherever it is that they're hiding out, the Pentagon has all of that information. So when they say there's no war plans, maybe they just mean that this text image did not include the full package of everything that they knew and everything that they could see and hear on the ground. But there is definitely some details, at least about timing, that is available. But the White House basically, or rather top national security officials basically dared the Atlantic to put this out. They sent Tulsi Gabbard and John Ratcliffe to the Hill yesterday to say there was nothing classified in here. Jeffrey Goldberg says that Caroline Leavitt emailed him last night suggesting that they did not want this material out there. But if it's not classified, it's not classified, and the Atlantic decided to go forward. So that's where we're at.
Okay, I find that very interesting. I was just thinking of something. So if it's not classified, right? Let's just imagine that it's not classified, right? They're saying, well, it's not classified. Well, what about if behind the scenes, right, they're saying, well, they're not allowed, the public is not allowed to know that it's classified. So it's classified to tell the public the classification. Okay? So inform them that it is not classified in order to deter them that this is an extraordinarily hidden information. This is not what we want anybody to know about. That's how secretive it is. So we are going to, we know it's classified, but we're not going to let anybody else know it's classified. We're going to pretend that it's not classified. This is nothing, and we're going to sweep it on the rug. We're going to find out how this individual got into this communication platform and infiltrated it and released it to the public. We're going to do that. At the same time, we're going to move on, sweep it on the rug. We're going to pretend it's not classified. So it's the classification in itself is classified. Okay, so that's how crazy a mess this is. This is the government and the military operating alongside us. With the world watching, and they have to do certain things in a certain way. We don't know, right? Well, only they know. So we're just getting this is why both sides, the left and the right, seem to be on the same page, but off the same page at the exact same time. This is crazy. Okay, but it does seem that the left is actually have more content about this than the right does. So let's continue a little bit and see what they got to say, because I want to move on to the comments.
And so Peter, there's no. We don't think the president has seen this yet, right?
It would seem like the president probably has seen this, because he was confidently telling us yesterday that he didn't think there was anything consequential in here. And the president goes to the Situation Room, and they can zoom in with spy satellites on guys right before the drone hits and right after the drone hits. And so the national security team sees a lot more than this. Right. And if a Houthi rebel saw that at 2:15, in all caps, this is when the bombs will definitely drop, it doesn't say where. And so I think there is about to be a big debate about what a war plan is and what a war plan is not. Right. This is just what we know was in the...
We saw the president with his headsets on at the golf course watching this in real time, too.
I think it's safe to assume the president has gotten a heads up on this. I just requested comment from the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. She has sent me back a tweet that she has put out in response to the new publishing, and it reads, "The Atlantic has conceded these were not war plans. This entire story was another hoax written by a Trump hater who is well known for his sensationalist spin." Is the response from Caroline Leavitt. So we'll certainly see more reaction
Thanks,
soon.
Peter. All right.
And I would just say...
Okay, that's very interesting, because the Atlantic did change its wording from war plans to attack plans. So why did the narrative shift? Okay, so let's comment that. The Atlantic changed its wording from war plans to attack plans. Why did the narrative shift? All right, very interesting. Let's read some of these comments. I'm old enough to remember when Republicans had a problem with Obama using his BlackBerry. Wow. You shouldn't be very old. That wasn't that long ago, in my opinion. So, next comment, Republican here. Retired military. Wrong is wrong. You need to admit what happened. Someone needs to be held accountable. Next comment, possibly the dumbest part was pretending it didn't happen, thereby allowing Goldberg to publish the lot and show them to be lying. Interesting. Next comment is, I want to hear the report confirming how Goldberg got on the group. That's all. I have to agree. Okay, let's move on, because I think that what CNN has to say is very interesting. So let's see what they have to say.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Goldberg and Shane Harris.
and it has the details and the text messages that the government says was not classified, and it tells you all about what is happening 31 minutes before they launch the planes that drop the bombs in Yemen. Brian Stelter joining us now with more details. There are huge revelations in this, and they certainly, how would you describe what you're seeing in the text messages?
These are shockingly detailed descriptions of the bombs that are about to fall in Yemen, and Jeffrey Goldberg is getting these details many minutes before the bombs fall. If this is not classified information, I would like the president to tell us what would count as classified information.
Well, you're not privy to know what's classified and what is not classified. So essentially, that's the issue I'm seeing. I'm seeing, why do we who are not involved in the classifications and what's classified and what's not, we're not allowed to know. How about that? We're not allowed to know what is classified and what is not classified, right? And if it is classified, right, then that's a problem, because then the guy probably who leaked it should be charged for releasing the classification material, right? So there seems to be an issue in believing that people who are not involved in classified material should know about the classifications of such material, right? It was leaked. We shouldn't know about it. We move on. But hey, they're all trying to figure out. It's good questions, I think, but it just seems to be redundant. So let's see what's going on.
With one omission, he is still withholding the name of a CIA employee because the CIA has asked him to do so. So that is notable. There still is something in these messages that is considered so sensitive that the Atlantic is choosing not to publish it. But the headline...
There you go. You see, there's classified material in it, but it's not classified, right? You see what I mean? So it's possible the government is stating behind the curtains to the people who are privy to this classified material, informing them that this classified material is so classified that we don't want anybody to know the classification of this material, right? We don't want to bring a big red light over here, blinking red light saying classified material, because then the enemy and other people would start, surrounding it and saying, well, let's pick it apart then, right? I want this, or we'll try to infiltrate it. They don't need a siren above the material. You know what I mean? So it's not like the government's going to say, oh, okay, you caught us. Here's our classified material, or this is what we classified it as. We don't get that, right? When has the government ever came out and said, okay, today we have 30 documents that are classified and 50 documents that are not classified? They don't tell us that kind of stuff, right? Because that's just what they keep to themselves until someone pokes them and says, hey, remember these documents? They were mentioned here, or they were leaked here, they were here, and then they're scrambling saying, oh, they found out about it, right? So, and not only that, this isn't old information like the JFK files. This is actually new information. This is what's going on right now at the minute, and it puts soldiers at risk. So people who are in the middle of wartime, people who are in the middle of an operation, you're in the middle of operation, you don't go, oh, okay, let's give our enemies, information of what we're doing through a journalist, right? Not only that, a journalist that opposes us, right? So we have to understand that the government's kind of going to back off and kind of sweep this under the rug as much as possible. And as he just said right now, there's a CIA agent that is involved that does not want to be revealed, and the Atlantic themselves possibly do not want to have this information and chose not to release it, but release the other information. So this is very interesting.
Here is that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth did send detailed descriptions of the military strike in Yemen to this group ahead of time. Goldberg was able to read these messages ahead of time. He looked at it and didn't know if it was real or not, but then he looked on social media and saw that the bombs were beginning to fall in Yemen. People can read this for themselves on the Atlantic website, but what you see in Hegseth's message, the key message here is from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and he specifies the timing for the attack, the first wave, the second wave, which military fighters were going to be used, and exactly what would happen when. So again, if that's not classified information, honestly, I don't know what is.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. I just want to quickly read one of the things. It says, time now, weather is favorable, just confirmed with CENTCOM. We are a go for mission launch. And then it describes in detail what they are about to do. So,
yeah, so what they're about to do, exactly. So it doesn't look like everybody has the information. Everybody's just scattered everywhere. So we do know there was some type of bombings that happened supposedly after the leak of the content. So let's read some of his comments. You know it's bad when a journalist respects operational security more than Secretary of Defense. Yeah, it's pretty bad. They don't care. This is a more political issue. Who'd you vote for? So everybody just wants to know. For the record, I think this is good for me to cover this because I didn't vote for either side. I don't vote. I'm independent. I'm more for the people than anybody else. Worshiping or idolizing a leader. Walk with God instead, and we need to be more independent, and we are not. People throw leaves in the garbage, so I think that we have a lot to do with ourselves, working on ourselves, and not relying on man to fix our problems, but relying on God to fix ourselves. So if anybody's wondering what I believe in or who I put my trust in, that's who I put my trust in. I put my trust in God. But we're going to comment here. If an accidental leak happened, should there be consequences for those responsible, or was this a non-issue, as Trump claims? Boom. Now, we are commenting that. We're moving on to the next comment. This is why journalism is the fourth branch. Freedom of speech. Hold them accountable. Okay. Next comment. Show a smart person a mistake and they will thank you. Show a stupid person a mistake and they will insult you. Lao Tzu. So, next is Jeffrey Goldberg should receive a medal for his valiant service toward his country's value. Let's comment that. Let's comment. Goldberg was inadvertently added to the chat. Was this truly an accident or a security failure? All right. Let's comment that, and we'll leave that there. Let's see if anybody has anything to say.
Not something that we had seen in the original report from Jeffrey Goldberg. All he had said was that Pete Hegseth, in the hours prior to this strike on the Houthis on March 15th, laid out operational details, timing, weaponry, etc. So a lot more details here. We have at 12:15, Pete Hegseth says the first launch of F-18s. And then in all caps, as he's laying out the timing of how this is going to go, he writes, this is when the first bombs will definitely drop. That is extraordinarily sensitive information. And the point that we have been making and that Jeffrey Goldberg and his colleague Shane Harris make in this report is, if it were not Goldberg in this chat, if it were someone else who could have shared this information with the Houthis, with other adversaries, they would have had access to an extraordinary level of detail about what was just going to happen. But I really do want to highlight some of the new information that we got here about what happened in the wake of this strike, because what we had understood was that Pete Hegseth and perhaps John Ratcliffe, the CIA director, that they had put Missile Guy, who was walking to his girlfriend's building, and
to publish and ask if there were any objections. So the White House press secretary is pushing back again this morning, a very familiar page from the Trump playbook, and again attacking the Atlantic, calling it a hoax, going after.
Okay, so the right is attacking the Atlantic. Trump is part of the right, so they're attacking the Atlantic. The Atlantic is known as to be a left-wing media publication, and so that's what's going on here. So let's read some of these comments, and we're going to move on to what the right wing has to respond in later. as more information is being released. This commenter says, as a vet, Trump and his staff are incompetent. The military should be screaming about this. Trump and his staff putting military personnel at risk. Totally unacceptable. All right? Yeah, sure. I'm not sure if you can blame entirely one person, but someone, if they had, as we said, inadvertently added Goldberg to the list for the chat, should be held accountable for that security failure, or is it a software glitch, or was Goldberg doing maliciously? Did he infiltrate it maliciously through criminal acts? We don't know. Everybody's still trying to figure that out. So you can't really say. You can just shout these things out, and I'm a military vet too. So there's that. And I don't entirely agree with this vet, but he is just vetting out on the comments and saying that when actually what we need in any courtroom would require before they can make an informed decision is more variables. Okay, we need more variables, and that's what we're gonna go look for right now. So let's do that as we move on to what
President Trump says all the time that the Houthis are going to have like hell raining down on them if they continue attacking U.S. vessels. That's not that different than what Pete Hegseth is writing in this secure group chat. He's saying, you know, this is when the first bombs will definitely drop. That is something that they talk about publicly, just not with times.
Right,
All right, Pete. Thanks so much.
Yeah, it looks like Goldberg overpromised. There's not war plans.
Okay.
Committee, thank you. 9 o'clock here in New York, watching this room here in D.C. Oath in about an hour's time. Also, we're waiting on the Vice President, J.D. Vance. He could be out public this morning.
Revealed, and then White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said this on X. The Atlantic has conceded these were not war plans. She goes on to say this entire story was another hoax written by a Trump hater who is well known for his sensationalist spin.
Okay, you see, and this is Caroline Leavitt. She is the press secretary, and she says the Atlantic has conceded, which they redacted from war plans to attack plans, as we stated earlier, from what information I have in their article. And it was not war plans; it was attack. What? See, what's different? Attack plans, war plans. What does that even mean, right? So I guess you're going to see war because war means you officially are at war. It changes certain laws. I don't know. I'm just guessing. But why from war plans to attack plans, right? So she doesn't say that. Caroline doesn't say that here. So is she misleading? Is she not explaining purposely? You see, they're behind the curtains, I'm sure, talking about how to take this blow as soft as they possibly can. She further states, this entire story was another hoax written by a Trump hater who is well known for his sensational spin. Okay, now let's continue with what she has to say before we read some comments on the left side, on the right side.
We have Peter Doocy, who is live at the White House with more. Hi, good morning, Peter.
Dana and Bill, good morning. What is a war plan? We know that the Pentagon uses sophisticated spy satellite imaging and coordinates to carry out strikes like the ones against the Houthis. None of that is listed in these texts that were just released, but there are some very specific timing guidance given about when things are going to be happening. There was a Pete Hegseth text to the group, and he's previewing something at 14:15 military time. He says, strike drones on target, and then in all caps, this is when the first bombs will definitely drop pending earlier trigger-based targets. There's a lot of stuff like that in here. The Atlantic reporter says that Caroline Leavitt told him she did not support releasing these texts despite assurances from spy chiefs that there was no classified information inside. We know that we know that Jeffrey Goldberg released them anyway within the last 20 minutes or so. The president sees this all as a cautionary tale about secrets spilling out anyway. He told reporters yesterday during a cabinet meeting, he said, last week he was in the Situation Room. There was something very important, and he had a couple people hooked up by the line, and he said, cancel the line. Sorry, fellas. What you do is we'll tell you about the meeting because I know people get on those lines, whether it's Signal or anything else. A lot of moving parts here. We expect a lot to change between now and when the White House press briefing is at 1 o'clock. Dana and Bill.
Okay, now, Peter, let's take it a step at a time here. The president said yesterday we screwed up, essentially. Lesson learned there. But you wonder how much longer this dribbles. And at the moment, we'll bring in Kevin McCarthy in a moment here, get his take on this about how Signal's used in Capitol Hill in Washington, whether or not it's the right thing to do or not. Has anyone lied under oath, Peter, that we can say? Because we watched that hearing yesterday.
That's a great question, Bill. It will depend on whether or not anything in this in these texts that have now been published that we just printed out and are still going through actually turns out to be classified. John Ratcliffe was explaining yesterday under questioning from senators that it's basically up to Pete Hegseth, who is running point on an operation like this, to decide if these specifics, these details are classified or not. If Pete Hegseth had not decided that they were classified at the time, even though it is definitely sensitive information that you would not want adversaries to see, then it would appear that they're clean on this and that there is nothing classified in there. Is it embarrassing? Mike Waltz himself said that this episode is embarrassing. He's taking responsibility for adding this reporter. He says that they've got Elon Musk and the Doge engineers, some of the brightest technical minds in the world, looking at his phone to figure out how exactly Jeffrey Goldberg got added in here.
Yeah, so how did he get added in there? Everybody's asking the same question on the left side and the right side. So that's good news, okay? That's great news. Now, let's see what the people have to say on this content on the right side. They say, who leaked the Supreme Court justice finding for Roe versus Wade? It's only been a couple of years now. It hasn't been that long, jeez. Okay, so very interesting. Next commenter says, I'm a Republican, and I voted that way because I wanted to see honest and clear answers when these hearings take place. What I mean, if they get up there and bluster and lie, I'm all for firing everyone that did that. My job as a regular cop requires us to tell the exact truth. In fact, we can be required to take a polygraph, and we are fired immediately if untruthfulness is found. We should expect no different from our leaders. Government, not exactly leaders, right? I would say that's the wrong word to use. They are to govern, not lead. It's already established constitution that has been established for quite some time that they are governing, and they are to have some kind of democratic vote if they want to change anything, which is we have activists who are leading that in such things as Roe versus Wade. Now, next commenter states, I feel bad for anyone ignoring XAI303V. Okay. Now, it seems that we have about the same level of comments on both sides, left and right. So people are kind of agreeing with this. They want accountability. Like my mom would say, this commenter states, just tell the truth and shame the devil. Certainly, accidents happen, but don't point fingers. Play the blame game and toss your word salads. Just apologize. Say you're sorry and move on. Find the source of the problem, fix it, and make it where it doesn't happen again. Let's pray for our country and for our leadership. We're all human, not perfect, and definitely we all make mistakes. Let's at least try to help America honest, safe, healthy, sovereign, God-fearing, accountable, prosperous, affordable, and great again. With their praying hands, they state that. Another commenter states, just watched a video about XAI303V, and I'm convinced it's going to change the landscape of finance. All right. The question that I want answered is why military plans were discussed on a messaging app and not in person. Very true. So, everybody seems to be on the same page. It's very interesting. Let's see what they had to say on the media again.
Same ballpark as a war plan.
Well, and I think that Jeffrey Goldberg might not have intended initially to release the text. Maybe he would have anyway. I don't know. But I think
but you know what's interesting about that, Dana? And what is interesting about that, because of the people that are involved, here at the White House, they used to tell us, I remember there were a lot of issues with Joe Biden with this, that the president's schedule is classified. And that was one of the things when they were looking at the Biden documents. Like, there were old schedules of his. That's classified because you don't want people to know when and where the principals are. So they overclassify a lot of stuff. But when you look at this, it's...
Yes, so there you go. He just stated it. They overclassify, in his opinion, they overclassify, but do they really? They just don't need people to know every single step of their move. It's the military. What military in the world doesn't classify their movements? Okay, let's continue.
It's unclear why Jeffrey Goldberg necessarily waited a couple weeks to release it, because the strikes had already happened, and it's not explaining anything. And anybody can go and look at the Atlantic's website. It's published right there. But they're not explaining, like, this is how...
Okay, so that's not good anyways. He released it a couple of weeks later, but as he's releasing it a couple of weeks later, he actually reveals where the communication platform is, who's using the communication platform. Now, China, Iran, these other places can go in and have their hackers hack and infiltrate that application. You see, this is why it's important for as the right wing media has said, Caroline Levitt is throwing cold water on the topic. Well, it's because what do you want? What do you expect them to do? Right? You guys are telling them where you're communicating at. They're communicating over here, everybody. You see, I got proof. They did this, they did that, and this is why. So go over here. Now the whole world knows. Congratulations. Why? What important? They didn't. It would be different, right? In my opinion, if it was criminal. They were doing something. They were committing a crime. Right, these people were killing innocent people. They would have something other than what the military is doing in preparation for an attack. What are they doing? You don't. Those are military operations, basic, fundamental military operations. I'm not advocating for war or attacks, or it's common sense. Military operations are private to that group. In fact, it's so private that the division or the group that's involved doesn't tell other military personnel, even inside the same department or anybody else, that it's confined in a certain department in the Army. They don't tell the rest of the Army, let alone tell the rest of the United States or the journalist or the world. This just seems like common sense. I don't understand why everybody's making a big deal about this. It's something. These journalists, it seems like they have an agenda. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to skip some of this because I think that everybody is being repetitive. And we are going to get down and see what actually happened.
CNN's Zach Cohen has new reporting as well for us in this breaking news. What are you learning about what has been published when you hear J.D. Vance saying this was oversold by Goldberg?
Yes, Sarah, sources are telling me and our colleague Natasha Bertrand effectively the exact opposite, and that the information that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth posted in this group chat was highly classified at the time. And that's especially because at that moment, the operation had not even started yet. One of our sources, a U.S. defense official, says that the operational plans that are these are our operational plans that are highly classified in order to protect service members, the ones that were obviously helping carry out the strike that is really laid out in a detailed timeline in these messages posted by The Atlantic today. And look, these are the kind of updates that would be given to the president in a highly classified setting in real time as the operation unfolded. Our sources are really stressing that, of course, this information was as sensitive as it appeared to be. And there's been some hints as to that being the fact, including yesterday, CIA Director John Ratcliffe was asked a hypothetical about whether or not pre-decisional planning deliberations like what's detailed in these messages should be delivered in a classified setting, and he said of course they should. And look, this is something that Donald Trump himself said yesterday when he was asked that there was no information in these chats or in this chat that was classified.
Okay, there you go. It's no information that was classified. It's repetitive. Okay, so what we have here is comment saying this disturbing irony is, this is on the left side. This is a comment made on the left, whether the left or not, I don't know. But we'll read it anyways, because this is what the left commenters have to say under their content. The disturbing irony is that only the outsider understood the impropriety of the comms. None of these officials in charge of national security recognize the obvious security issue. That's what I'm saying. How do you know? How does that commenter know that they don't recognize the obvious security issue? Perhaps it's so obvious to them that they don't want to make it obvious to the world. So what we don't obviously see is them obviously talking about it amongst themselves, because it's not obvious what they're talking about, because we can't see what they're talking about. So we don't know what they're actually saying. They could be actually saying, hey, this is a big problem. We are going to have to throw cold water on this, because now the whole world, including the opposition, knows what platform we use. And we need to control this fire, right? So the statement this commenter makes by stating none of these officials in charge of national security recognize the obvious security issue is just an opinion without any backing. There's nothing there. How does he know that? How does that commenter know that? He doesn't. I don't know that. We don't know what they're talking about behind the scenes. You know, if I was in charge, and I would say, listen, I wouldn't care what the public thinks. I would do what's in the best interest of everyone, right? So what a journalist or a political advocate has to say, that doesn't matter. What matters is to do what is right. And if what is right is to inform the public that nothing is classified, when nothing is classified, everything is fine, just to soften the blow of what shouldn't have been released, because it seems left and right all agree it shouldn't have been, something shouldn't have happened. This information is sensitive. Then wouldn't it be wise for the person in charge to say, let's not flame the fire, right? So essentially that's what they're doing. They're not flaming the fire. They're throwing cold water on it, and they're trying to walk away, but everybody wants to scream and shout. So we're going to comment. Jeffrey demands Hegseth resign, but is that justified when others say no classified details were leaked? So we are going to read the next comment. How crazy is that? They'd lie even knowing proof that their lying was sure to come out. Totally unhinged and shameless. Okay. Totally unhinged and shameless. And we are going to comment there. Are we seeing legitimate national security concerns here, or is this another political media battle? I think it's a political media battle now. I think someone needs to release the media battle war plans, right? Nobody should be releasing sensitive information, especially if they're explaining to them, this is what the communication platform they use. This is how they use it. This is what they said. I have proof. It's not good. I'm very interested to see what's going to happen from this. I think they're going to throw. I believe the right side is going to throw cold water on this. I'm going to foresee with the future here a little bit, and they're going to say, this is something we're going to look into while everybody else is running around screaming, and they're going to look into it and find out that this guy who infiltrated and released this sensitive information had broken some kind of law, right? And then these journalists, these people who are committing these acts, are going to be held accountable. It's a possibility. I don't know if it's going to happen, but it's a possibility. I would say it's a 50-50 because there's been other journalists who leaked information about crimes being committed that allegedly were being committed and had been placed in prison and were requested to be extradited to the United States for such acts. So this isn't something new. This is something that has been ongoing for quite some time. And I don't know what's going to happen, but let's see what this comment says. Calling the man who saved you from a big mistake a loser is the most embarrassing act ever. This guy is an American U.S. patriot. So, Trump says it's not a big deal. If so, why is there such strong pushback from this defense official? Okay. Now, does this situation highlight a broader issue with how secure our government communication channels are? Yes. So we're going to put that comment as our main comment. Okay. And we are going to continue. And I also want to see if we have any information here left over, because it does seem like they were holding this. Okay. Let's see what the official has to say here.
The messages.
I can't believe how anyone would think it wasn't classified at the time, which I guess is what they are at least acknowledging. I actually wish that Jeffrey Goldberg had given these text messages first to the intelligence committees to examine before putting them out there. But the administration gave him that opening without a doubt by their doubling down on what they say wasn't in there. This was a horrible blunder. The administration is doing, unfortunately, what it generally does, which is attack the messenger, deflect from what the actual issues are rather than just acknowledge you made a big mistake. You had, from what I understand, a good operation that should be applauded. But from a security standpoint, this is just another example of how, frankly, incompetent this administration has been in handling national security issues.
Okay, so there you go. Another opinion, because we still got to figure out if it was infiltrated, how it was infiltrated, why it was infiltrated, and all these other questions, because it seems that everybody's agreeing this is not something that is good, right? Obviously. Let's see what the right has to say. Continue on, because there's more information that has just been released.
Well, we have what is fair to say a viral moment that just happened in that House hearing on global threats we've been telling you about. It comes on the heels of that brand new signal message that was posted, several of them, of these 18 officials talking about the Houthi strike. And it goes after Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth.
To your knowledge, do you know whether Pete Hegseth had been drinking before he leaked classified information?
I don't have any knowledge of Secretary Hegseth's personal habits.
Director Radcliffe, same question. Yes or no?
You know, no, I'm going to answer that. I think that's an offensive line of questioning. The answer is no. I find it interesting that you want to. No, I'm going to answer. You asked me a question. You want an answer?
No, listen.
You don't want to focus on the good work that the CIA is doing, that the intelligence community.
Director, I reclaim my time. Director, I reclaim my time.
I mean.
Okay, that was the CIA director. So that's very interesting that they're having an argument about this, because earlier we had noted that there was information that the CIA had stated within those leaked text plans that the CIA did not want out and Atlantic refused to release. So now we're seeing a huge argument by the CIA director and another official. So this is very interesting. Let's see what the right has to say about this in the mainstream media.
Emily, this was quite an exchange just to make something up out of thin air, no evidence to prove it. He clearly doesn't have any, and then assert that someone might have been drinking, as if Radcliffe and Tulsi were had spy cameras everywhere.
Yeah, look, I think there's been a theme today that, as we've talked about, decorum and the frankly embarrassing behavior exhibited by some sitting Congress people, and that right there is another example. I find it offensive too. I'm so glad that Director Ratcliffe went to bat for him. Unfortunately, I wish that his time hadn't been reclaimed so that he could have finished his answer. And I also point to in early December when Secretary Hegseth said that he would not drink a drop of alcohol during his tenure as Secretary of Defense if confirmed. So this is just ridiculous.
So no drinking alcohol. Why? So this guy, what is he labeled as an alcoholic? This is absolutely ridiculous. This just gets crazier. Okay, let's let me back up a little bit, because that was a very all right. Hey, you know, I don't know what's going on with this guy. He's drinking and he's getting into these chat rooms, right? And he has scotch on the rocks on his table, and he's just having a ball. So that just painting a picture. I don't know what's going on, but we're going to find out here in a few minutes, because there is some more breaking news on this. But before we go to that, let's see what the commenters have to say. One person says, Coke in the White House is okay though. Very interesting. Coke in the White House, remember that? Okay, we're going to comment, should officials use apps like Signal for military communication, or does this pose a security risk? Now it does. I'll answer that. It does now. Why? Because now there can be a focus from the enemies to infiltrate that with their specialized group of hackers they have behind the scenes. Okay? So next commenter states, only Democrat lawmakers act like that. All should know Elon's exum conum. Okay, we are going to comment. If the chat was classified, why wasn't action taken to prevent leaks before it went public? Very, very true. There should have been some preventable measures taking place. And we are going to read another couple of chats. Another one. So another person says, from the people who ignored cocaine at the White House. Wow, that's another cocaine comment. Not good. People are not forgetting about that. Another commenter states, what about Swalwell and his Chinese spy Feng Feng? Okay, another commenter states, did anyone question Miley's state of mind or Clinton's when she made her decision to ignore embassy request? All right. Next commenter states, evil people doing evil. Don't sleep on Elon's exconum. Okay. Next commenter says, absolutely despicable. Elon's economy is the best. Okay. It's the best, huh? All right. And let's continue and see what they have to say, because I believe the right is saying almost about the same thing as the left. But the right seems to be softening it a little bit more. It's only because of them. So let's play a little bit more, and we're gonna cut this short.
There is more to the clip, Lawrence. I'm reading the transcript here. When pressed by Radcliffe, you have Gomez, who goes on to say Pete Hegseth stood in front of a podium in Europe holding a drink. So, of course, we want to know if his performance is compromised. The drink was like water at a podium. So that's your evidence that drinking water at the podium somehow indicates you're drinking alcohol?
This is nonsense.
Okay, all right. So you're drinking alcohol because you're at the podium. Why are you drinking water at the podium? Right? That's what they're saying. So I guess that's it. He's not an alcoholic. They're just saying he's drinking water. Oh, you remember who else is drinking? Everybody's been accused of drinking. That I forgot her name. The lady who tore up all those documents behind Trump. She was been accused of drinking. Maybe it's just because she looks old and fragile. We don't know. But it's interesting. Let's see what the left has to say, because there is some more breaking news going on.
With us now is Congressman Carlos Jimenez, a Republican from Florida who is on the House Armed Services Committee. Congressman, thank you for being with us. We have this exchange now that was on Signal, which is not a government app, where the Secretary of Defense is telling people exactly what time planes will be launched and exactly what time bombs will fall, hours before they are set to fall. How would you describe that information?
I would describe that information as highly sensitive, and it shouldn't have gone out on a Signal chat. That's things that should be discussed one-on-one or in a skiff. That's not something that should go out on a Signal chat. At least that's what we've been told here. That's what I was taught here when I became a congressman. Those things are discussed in the skiff and only in the skiff, or I don't know what the rules are for the administration. I mean, they're the ones that classify stuff, so I would assume that in the White House or there's some other places that information can be shared.
There you go. Much better information. Now, that's something we should note. Duly noted, the left has invited a Republican onto the forum, and he has stated that that information should have, from what his training entailed, been communicated on what's called the skiff. So we are going to comment here. Should journalists be punished for publishing leaked government communications, or is that their job? Okay, let's read another comment I have to say over here on the left side. Admit mistakes were made and move on. I don't think so. Remember, lock her up. Another commenter states, the full message chain is out. These people all lied under oath at the same Senate hearing. They should all be fired because of their gross incompetence. Someone else states, this Republican Party has no shame. Okay. Someone else stated, move on. Or move on, question mark. Someone needs to be held accountable for this. Yeah, I tend to agree. I think someone should be held accountable for this. I don't know. We have to have all the variables in place, and this is not my job, because I don't have the security clearance in order to investigate what's going on. But considering that this has caused a wave on both left and right side concerning security issues, someone should be held accountable, and an explanation should become to let us know that we can rest assured that people are being protected and there's no compromise. Now, we're going to state, why did the Atlantic initially frame the text as war plans and then walk it back? Okay. Now, this guy is BS. Accept the error and move on. It is unacceptable in this matter. All involved, including J.D. Vance, need to resign. Now, we're going to comment, would this be as big a controversy if a different administration was involved? And we'll leave that there. And we'll continue on and see what else they have to say. It's very interesting. All right.
How would you describe the level of honesty and disclosure over the last 24 hours from the likes of Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, who has said, "There were no war plans," texted, "I know what I'm doing."
Well, look, this is obviously a huge mistake. I think what we should do is just fess up to it. Okay, we made a mistake. We will clean this up. It will not happen again. No U.S. servicemen were killed, and the strikes came out successfully. And so you move on, and then you take responsibility for what happened. And you said, yeah, this was unfortunate. Somebody must have hit the wrong button or the wrong person, and included somebody that shouldn't have been on that signal chat.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, I tend to agree with him a little bit, because we have to understand that this isn't just one side. This is actually what seems to be both sides seem to be wrong. They have some wrongdoing in this, whether it be a lack of security measures taking place, or an infiltration that shouldn't have taken place. It looks like there can be a little bit wrong on both sides. Now, how that's handled, I'm sure the administration is handling it. So we're going to move on and see what the right has said, because there's some more information that just came out. Let's play that real quick on the right side.
Beautiful day when we're on the road talking to the troops, and actually in real time reestablishing deterrence. You see, that's what President Trump has charged the Defense Department with doing. Reviving the warrior ethos, rebuilding the military, which we're doing in real time, and reestablishing deterrence. And that's why we're heading out into the Indo-Pacific to talk to our allies and partners and meet with the troops. And anybody that knows me for years and knows President Trump knows how much we love the warriors. That's what it's about. The men and women who serve, who do the tough, difficult, gritty, dirty work that most Americans will never know about, but we have the privilege of seeing and understanding the courage and skill of what they do. I'm going to go see that for the next couple of days. We also have seen it on full display in what's been done to the Houthi terrorists and what they're trying to do to close freedom of navigation. So you see, under the Biden administration, we let our troops and our ships, and both warships and commercial ships, get shot at to no consequence. What does that look like? That looks like weakness. And what President Trump has said is, peace through strength is back. We will reestablish deterrence. That's not acceptable. And our ongoing campaign against the Houthis has been devastatingly effective. Now, as I said to this group a couple of times on this trip now, as we move to the Indo-Pacific to do our job, which is what we're here to do, nobody's texting war plans. Well, I noticed this morning, out came something that doesn't look like war plans. And as a matter of fact, they even changed the title to attack plans, because they know it's not war plans. There's no units, no locations, no routes, no flight paths, no sources, no methods, no classified information. You know who sees war plans? I see them every single day. I looked at them this morning. I looked at attack plans this morning. You know who does attack plans and war plans? Men like that admiral right there, Paparo, for the Indo-Pacific, or Eric Kurilla.
Okay, what he just pointed at some guy that was just. No, he didn't. Okay, I'm mistaken. This guy over here is at Parade Rest on the right side, and there's another guy over here dressed in what seems to be civilian clothes. I could be mistaken, but he said that was the admiral.
Our general in CENTCOM, they do
okay.
attack plans.
Okay, I could be wrong. I think that he was trying to point to the guy next to the guy in civilian clothes. I could not see behind him because of his big head. Yes.
And war plans. And thank God we have those leaders who do it and do it well, and our enemies know it. My job, as it said atop of that, everybody's seen it now, team update, is to provide updates in real time. General updates in real time, keep everybody informed. That's what I did. That's my job. The war fighters will take the fight to the enemy, and I love what they do. And with President Trump's leadership, our enemies are on notice. We will have peace through strength, and we'll keep putting our troops first. Thank you very much. We're heading off
strike plans
to the rest.
before they launched. Mr. Secretary, how do you square what you said with what your messages show? Mr. Secretary, did you share classified information? Mr. Secretary, did you declassify that information?
Hey, Sean Hannity here.
Okay, Mr. Secretary, can you? There's a lady speaking. I'm not sure if you can hear her. I would suggest that she get a speakerphone, right? Okay, joke. Obviously, he doesn't care. He wasn't there to ask questions, answer questions. But I want to play that back, and we're going to see what she actually had to say, because perhaps those are questions we should be asking.
Troops first.
Mr.
Thank you very
Secretary,
much. We're heading off
strike plans
to the red.
before they launched. Mr. Secretary, how do you swear?
Okay, that was interesting. What did she say? She said, did they share plans before they launched?
We'll have peace through strength, and we'll keep putting our troops first.
Mr.
Thank you very
Secretary,
much. We're heading off
strike plans
to the red.
before they launched. Mr. Secretary,
I think she said, did they share plans before they launched? Interesting.
how do you swear what you said with what your messages show?
How do you swear what you said as opposed to what your message has shown? How do you swear what you said as opposed to what your message has shown?
Mr. Secretary, did you share classified information?
Mr. Secretary, did you share classified information? Okay, this is all stuff that he's already answered. So this journalist is horrible. She's a plant or something. Did someone just tell her these are the vague questions I want you to ask, so we can look repetitive and act like someone, this journalist out here, right? And why is no one else shouting too? Because if I was there, we're definitely going to be shouting better. Is people going to be held accountable, Mr. Secretary? Come on, we got to step up the questions here. I'm rewinding this, and I'm getting the worst questions I've ever heard. I wouldn't want her to be on the front line in journalism in any conference, any press conference. This is horrible, poor questions.
Mr. Secretary, did you declassify that information?
Did you declassify the information, Mr. Secretary? Where's the accountability questions? Is someone going to be held accountable for releasing that sensitive information on either side, etc., etc.? We need to ask better questions, because people on both sides, from what we have determined, are asking for accountability. All right, let's move on, because it's redundant information being shared on both sides. Let's see what the left has to say.
I'm sure everybody out there has had a contact where it was said one person and then a different phone number.
But you've never talked to him before, so how's the number on your phone?
National Security Advisor Mike Waltz appeared on Fox News in an attempt to explain how he inadvertently included the Atlantic editor Jeffrey Goldberg to a Signal group chat discussing U.S. war plans.
I mean, I'm not an expert in any of this, but it's just curious. How's the number on your phone?
Well, if you have somebody else's contact and then somehow it gets
someone
sucked
sent
in,
you that
it gets sucked in.
Was there?
Okay, then you get sucked in. Okay, someone got sucked in, everybody. All right, it was an accident. You just get sucked in, right? yeah, that happened, right? You just get sucked into a group chat, right? I don't know. I don't understand. I'm sure this must be a very common problem. You just get sucked into. Coincidentally, you're a journalist who opposes the administration, and you've got sucked in to that group chat, right? Okay, that doesn't make any sense. We're going to cut that one short, because we'll move on to what they're saying now. Same on the left.
Chuck Hagel was a Republican senator from Nebraska before being tapped as Defense Secretary by President Obama. And he's joining me now from Washington. Welcome back to our program. So,
thank you, Christina.
Defense Secretary and also still a Republican. We'll get into what kind of Republican in a moment. But do you agree with Senator Bennett, Democrat from Colorado? This is unacceptable. This is a whole load of other words that he used there. What's your reaction?
Well, I think Senator Bennett's comments were appropriate. My reaction is amazement, astounding. Is this gross incompetence? Is it recklessness? Is it both? It's certainly confusion. And when you've got confusion at the top with the very most important national security institutions that defend our country and protect our intelligence and have relationships with other countries, we've got a problem. And I don't think Senator Bennett or other senators in that hearing yesterday overstated anything. I think they were right on it. And in addition, what the Atlantic, Mr. Goldberg, released today, I think just backs that up. It was just truly astounding that we would see that released in the form of a non-secure government channel. And I just have never heard of that before. I've never seen that before.
So that I was going to ask you, had you ever seen anything like this before? So let me ask you one of the most important questions, because the White House says that these were not war plans, that the story is a hoax, you know, the typical blame the messenger. So I want to ask you two questions. Are they war plans, what you've read? I mean, they seem to me rules of engagement. I've been in the field. I wonder what you think. And B, is this information that ordinarily would be considered classified?
Well, I think it is information that would ordinarily be classified for obvious reasons. I mean, details of a strike, a war strike, that's going to kill people, do damage. That's the intent of it. I think that is classified information. And you can parse words, or you can parse dimensions of the issue, and is it a war plan or a war strike? But it's all the same, and in many ways you can say that the specifics of a war strike, which this laid out, is even more important, and probably should be even more classified than war plans. But all of those, I think, are classified.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so everybody's agreeing, thank God, that this is sensitive information. Okay, now we're gonna move on because there's actually one more that on the right side to end this that has recently come out. This is most recent, and they are talking about this. It's very interesting. Let's hear it.
Let's get some more context and perspective on all of this with Lieutenant Colonel Darren Gobb. He's a retired Army Battalion Commander and Black Hawk pilot. So you've got two competing narratives going on here. You've got the Democrats browbeating the intel chiefs of the Trump administration for what they say is a glaring error in security by accidentally, inadvertently inviting a journalist onto a signal chat. And then on the other side of the coin, you've got the Trump administration saying, hey, you know, we took it to the Houthis. People should appreciate that, particularly after a number of years of relative inaction by the previous administration. What do you think of both arguments here?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I think at some point we have to go towards that there can be two things true at the same time. And we did take it to the Houthis, and we should have. We needed to open up those shipping lanes. We had to stop letting them kind of dictate terms in the Suez Canal and all the different damage that they've done through that region while we continued to display weakness for year after year after year. Now you get to what I'm calling Signal Gate, and they're beating the drum on that, specifically on the Democrat side, of course, as demonstrated in this hearing. And you know, there were clearly some mistakes made there regarding who was invited into this group. It is an authorized use platform. I have used it during military operations of an unclassified nature for updates all through Eastern Europe and into Central Asia and the Middle East when I ran task forces. You have to discipline yourself in how you use it and what you share. You have to know what is and what is not classified. I think they're getting ahead of the conclusions of an investigations in the National Security Council investigation in order to score political points. Personally, I don't think some of this information I may not have shared if it were me, but I'm not them. I wasn't in their situation. And I think we need to let this investigation come to a conclusion first before they make their conclusions in front of the American public in a hearing that should be focused on other things.
Very true. So you see, they're just, it's redundant there. Everybody's come back to the same conclusion that this shouldn't have been leaked, et cetera, et cetera. So one commenter states, imagine if this happened under Biden. And then we commented, the Atlantic initially labeled the text as war plans, but later changed it to attack plans. raising questions about the accuracy of the initial report. All right. And the next commenter states, anybody else remember that kid that was sentenced to prison because he took a selfie bought a nuclear submarine that didn't actually show anything but because of the location he went to prison, but yet these idiots expect us to believe that releasing plans ahead of time is perfectly okay? We're going to say Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth posted real-time updates on military operations in a signal chat, including strike times and mission launch details. Yeah. So we are going to go to the next commenter states, the country is a huge insane asylum from coast to coast. And we are going to comment there. Trump and his officials claim no classified information was shared, while a U.S. defense official with 15 plus years of experience says the details were not even debatable in their classified nature. Okay. And another commenter states, it can happen to anyone. I've lost count of the number of times I have disclosed classified war plans in group chat. Very interesting. So we're going to state right here. Goldberg, a journalist, was inadvertently added to the chat and later published the information, sparking controversy over whether it was truly an accident or a security lapse. This commenter states, so these are the qualified professionals and everyone else is a DEI hire? Very interesting. This is all comments that are being made under the right-wing media, mainstream media channel. So we're going to state, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries has called for Pete Hegseth to resign over or be fired over the leaked messages. Okay. Now the next commenter states, they could have used Facebook Messenger as well, also encrypted. What's okay? This commenter is funny. Hold on. Okay, he said sarcasm. What's the problem, right? Just some war plans is all. Sarcasm mode off. All right. Let's see what people are saying about that. War plans without targets, coordinates, or locations, without personal packages and coordinations. What kind of war plans were they? Laugh out loud. Okay, someone else responds to them. That's really not the point. The point is, why did they break communication security protocol, and what other messages have been sent on unsecured platforms? If this had been the Democrats making this comms breach, you would be calling for them to serve time in prison, right? So it seems that everybody's having okay. Goldberg released everything already. True. So we're gonna join that little comment right there and say Trump downplayed the leak. Trump downplayed the leak, saying it had no impact on the attack and was really not a big deal. Really not a big deal? Okay, all right. It's really not a big deal. Something's going on. You see that? He's downplaying even, the infiltration or alleged infiltration of that individual into the chat. Okay, so what we have here is Putin is laughing. Another commenter states, Putin is laughing his ass off at the incompetent clown show. Actually, the entire world is. What surprise they didn't finish the chat chain with, so who's up for some pizza, yo? Okay. We're going to comment there. This is our first comment. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt pointed out that The Atlantic altered its reporting language, arguing it was an attempt to sensationalize the story. All right. This commenter states, imagine if Joe Biden did this. Well, yes. Imagine if Joe Biden did this. So we're going to comment. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt pointed out the Atlantic altered its reporting language, arguing it was an attempt to sensationalize the story. Okay. We just stated that. So we're going to state Hegseth and his allies argue that the chat contained no names, targets, locations, units, routes, source, or methods, making the claim of classified material questionable. But will they continue to investigate whether or not it doing such activity as really, because you can't expect that, because it's classified at the time, that after the attack or the plans have unfolded, that no, it's not classified no more, we can release the information out to the public, right? I'm part of the chat, I can do that. No, unless someone has unclassified it and has given you details to release that. I think that's very questionable to go on your own and release that information. Another comment states, all of them lied under oath and no consequences, question mark. Now, we're going to state foreign partners had already been notified of the planned strikes before the messages were published, according to Hex Defense. Okay, who informed them of that, right? I wonder who did that. Who informed them? What's going on here? I think there's more to the story than what's being told. This person states, can't wait to see what SNL does with this. Very true. Easy to write when the administration itself is a joke. Okay, see, this is not, again, this is the right-wing comment box section. So this could be a lefty over here commenting on the right wing, which, I don't care. I think everybody should comment wherever they want to. But just to point out, this is the right wing media channel that we're reading the comments off of. So we're going to comment. Some officials claim that the CENTCOM leader, General Michael Kurilla, had known the information was leaked. He might have canceled or rescheduled the operation due to potential risk. So now we are going to add some more comments here. This is the last video on the right wing. Another person states, this is so stupid. Hegseth is an unqualified oaf. Former Fox News host turned top figure in defense of America. What a laughingstock. Let's comment over here. We got this. Trump suggested that the journalist was possibly added to the chat by a very innocent staffer. Suggested by an innocent staffer, but later stated they would get to the bottom of it. There you go. Now, this person states, Hegseth thought he was playing Call of Duty on Twitch. The right wing seems to be real funny. We've been reading a few comments. They're on the funny side over here. They got the little funny bone on the right side. I laughed a few times. It is kind of funny. It's good to shed light on this situation. It's a dark situation because it's infiltrating a sensitive that can hurt people. It's information that can hurt people. But like someone suggested, Trump's looking into it. So, which they should be. I would be if I was them, of course. But that's none of our business to know about, other than of face value of what the details are going to be. Perhaps we'll hear more about this in the future. And we're going to comment, despite the controversy, intelligence leaders Tulsi Gabbard and John Ratcliffe testified that no classified details were compromised in the messages. All right, so there is, I guess you can say, if they weren't classified, then that'd be very interesting. Or would you need to classify that, considering that it's already classified information when those operatives are engaged in speaking with each other, right? It's by default classified. We don't know. If soldiers can use Signal and communicate this sort of content on Signal, no one should prosecute them. I assure you, if this happened to a low-level soldier and and it was in the press, he'd be severely punished. Very interesting. I think that both sides are starting to agree on this, at least on the people's side. The media, they're just, I don't know what's going on with the media. What we're reading that comes from the people for sure. We're commenting here. This incident has sparked broader discussions about government communication security and whether apps like Signal should be used for sensitive military coordination. Yay. All right. SNL, another funny one. SNL gonna have a field day with this one. This commenter states, General Miley bragged he would give China any plans that Trump would make. Anyone remember? Crickets. Very interesting. We are going to comment, critics argue this is another example of the media pushing a misleading narrative against Trump, while others say it exposes serious security flaws within his administration. So, we'll read one more comment. What we got here? Here we go. Tulsi Gabbard is back tracking on her sworn Senate testimony from yesterday. Is perjury still a crime, or did Trump sign an executive order making it okay? Very interesting. Okay. We are going to state the debate continues over whether this was an actual security breach or a political driven controversy blown out of proportion. And let's finalize this with one more breaking news story from CNN, left wing, and we are going to continue here.
CNN military analyst, retired Air Force Colonel Cedric Layton joins us now. Colonel, there's a lot of talk about whether or not this was in fact classified information, the details that were revealed in this text chat, and what an adversary could take away from that information. What is your take on what we saw and the type of risk it could pose?
Yeah, Erica, there are several things to look at here. First of all, you have the specific weapons platforms that are mentioned right here. You have the F-18s that are mentioned, and you have the MQ-9s, which is the Predator Reaper drone. The other thing that you have, the timing. 12:15, 13:45. This is when he did this, and then he talks about the first strike window starts at at this particular time, and that the strike package should be on time. The other thing is that he mentions this term trigger-based, so that could mean several different things. But what we're talking about here probably is either an asset that is out there that is waiting to be tasked to hit a specific target. They know what target they're going to hit, but they're only going to hit if they're given that go-ahead to do so. Or it could be a euphemism for a particular base that they're at. So that is the first part of the text. The second part here, again, we have the same thing with the weapon system, and you have the times where everything happens, and then he says at 14:15 he says, or 2:15 he says, strike drones are on target. And this is
okay. Did you see that his picture and everything next to him? So this is something that is very interesting, because what we have here is somebody who is not supposed to be in the chat. I think both sides agree to this, but it does seem like the left is trying to advert to that fact. They're trying to avert everybody away from that fact. They're like, no, we can't speak about that. Let's speak about what was said in the chat, so we can show that they when it comes to blocking people from entering the chat, they're not good at it. So they're not good at their job. Ask them to resign, right? Well, all right, that's one way to look at it, but does that make it right to enter the chat? It's as if someone were to sneak into a government facility that is off, like Area 51. You sneak into Area 51, knowing good well you're not supposed to be there, but you sneak into it, and then you point fingers and you blame the person that you tricked in order to get in there, and say, I got in here, it's your fault, you should be fired because I got in here. And when I got in here, I revealed stuff that was going on in here because I was part of the meeting that you allowed me in because I tricked you and snuck in. You're not allowed to sneak in. That's just what it comes down to. Okay? Now, we're going to that's my opinion in this. You can't sneak in places you're not allowed to be in. Right? And now they got to show that this guy possibly had ill will, and not even that he knowingly snuck in to somewhere he's not supposed to be sneaking into. Therefore, he's trespassing. So let's continue on before we shut this down. This is the last part, and we are going to call it a end of live stream.
Basically, when the drones will actually drop the bombs, and that will be based on the coordination with the F-18s that are working those so-called trigger-based targets. So this is one of the areas where you can see how much detail is actually used in each of these texts. And then the other thing you have is the second strike. So not only did we talk about the first strike, but we talked about the second strike, and you mentioned the weapons, he mentions the weapons platforms, and the fact that the Tomahawks are being launched. These are the shipborne missiles that are actually going to be used in this kind of an operation, and this is where the aircraft carrier launches these, the F-18s from this perspective, but the other part is, of course, you launch the Tomahawk missiles that he talked about here, and this is, a very critical element because it shows all the different aspects of the weapons platforms that we have here, and here you have the target being struck, and of course the resulting explosions from that area.
Very interesting. You see, here this is a huge mess. These guys just telling everybody, the whole world, what's going on, and this was supposed to be a sensitive operation. And at any time, the government can come back, the administration can come back and say, listen, although we did say it wasn't sensitive information, it wasn't classified information at the time, it was classified, it is classified. We've looked further into it. We are going to charge this person for infiltration, trespassing. I don't know what the charges are going to be. This is all new to everybody, but I think that this is something that I wouldn't advocate any of our journalists do. We don't. I would, if a journalist did this, I would say you are no longer going to be employed with us or working with us because this is not the type of ethics we approve of. Okay, it doesn't matter what side you're on, left, right, up, down, center. It doesn't matter. There is no laws being broken. You're only putting people in jeopardy when you are releasing information about a certain operation that is supposed to be privy to the people communicating who expect that privacy. You infiltrated that privacy. In my strong opinion, it does seem like the left side is avoiding that part of the situation and more focusing on what was revealed and showing that, look what we got. We were able to infiltrate the security, therefore the security is poor. All right, well, that's one argument, but you forgot that the security was actually infiltrated and it shouldn't have been, right? So there was trespassing involved, and there shouldn't have been no trespassing involved. Both sides are wrong. And with that, we are going to end. Have a good day, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
Colonel, what does it tell you that the specific targets that they picked were targeted? Is there anything that reveals something to you about the effort to go after specific Houthi rebels?
So one of the key things to see about this, Boris, is that the very fact that he's talking about specific targets can mean several things. But if you know the target area and you're an intelligence analyst, you're looking at the area where we're talking about. You're looking at Sana'a as the capital, which is a possible area, and then this city near the Saudi border, which is called Sada, that is a stronghold of the Houthis. So you know at the very least that one of two areas is going to be struck by this, maybe even both. And if you were intercepting this kind of information, you would know that to prepare if you are the one that is charged with informing the Houthis, you'd know to prepare these areas for a possible strike. And that's why this kind of thing is really important, because the reason you classify these kinds of conversations and the plans that are resulting in these kinds of strikes, the reason you classify that is to prevent the adversary from knowing what you're going to do. And if that ever got out into the open, they could protect these areas, and that would make it really hard for us to conduct these operations as successfully as we did.
It's really important to walk through all that, Colonel. Really appreciate it. Thank you.